Should we start?
Oh,
Oh, there we go. Okay.
we didn't have a.
No music today, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's all right.
Oh, as long as you heard it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all good.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is for you.
And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good.
That's right.
just
Welcome
heard it
to episode 78
78.
of Azure Flash News. It's October 25th.
Yep.
You know, we're not afraid to mention that, but
No, yeah.
we're kind of on this new sort of like ad hoc schedule. So feel free to catch us on the different places for podcasts and
Please.
on YouTube if you want to see the video,
Yep. On the
which you're
YouTubes.
going to want to do this week.
Absolutely, because we are going to demo something that's
Yeah,
kind of
we're-
fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's great to catch up with everybody, catch up with Azure, right? We've got Ignite right around the corner.
Yep. Couple weeks, right?
10
Is
days.
that right?
Yeah.
Oh, 10 days.
10
Wow.
days. So we will, obviously there's going to be some big splash announcements. So stay tuned for that good stuff. But having said that, there have been some great announcements leading up to Ignite that we absolutely
Yes.
don't want to ignore.
Yes. Well, okay. We're going to talk a little bit about Azure storage
We
stuff.
are. Yes.
Two things.
Yes. Yep.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
Then we've got a little bit of something, a little bit of interesting sort of analysis around Azure SQL Database. Rick likes this one.
I love it.
And then the last one is an actual announcement about, well, I'm not even going to tell you
Yeah.
because that'll give it away.
True.
Oh, you've got it up on the screen. Well, if you're just listening on the
Oh
podcast,
my
you
gosh,
just,
sorry. I spoil
you just-
alert.
ah,
Just think
Rick.
bouncy. I know.
oh,
totally.
it's okay. We're only stealing our own thunder, which
That's
is okay.
true.
We're
Fair
allowed.
enough.
All
Fair
right.
enough.
So let's go back to the beginning. A very good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was a Wednesday.
was it
I believe so.
Wednesday afternoon? I think.
Yes, that sounds
Yes.
about right.
And we're going to talk a little bit about Azure Files, which, this is not the most popular service in Azure,
Correct.
because it's had some limitations, maybe even.
Absolutely.
But let's just talk a little about what Azure Files actually is.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead. No, please go ahead. I was sorry. I had to
We're
adjust my mic. I know.
Yeah, you did.
I
It's,
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Anyway.
got a little kitty wampus. By
Yeah,
all means.
that's
Fire
all right.
Fire away, man.
Okay, so Azure Files is a capability of Azure Storage.
Yes.
And it's something you can kind of go in and create a storage account, and it's one of the things you can do. We commonly associate storage accounts with blob files. In other words, just
Yep.
files that you can upload with a put or a get or whatever in
Yep.
HTTP, right?
Yep. Correct.
But Azure Files is more like a file server,
Yes. Yeah. I'm more a file share.
a file share
Yeah.
in the sky.
Yes.
And so, like, if you need to mount a drive,
Yep.
that's Azure Files.
Correct.
And so, and I think it uses SMB3.
Yep.
So that's secure across the internet, frankly, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a secure connection.
Yeah.
But it is a way for you to have SMB3 shares available to whatever.
Correct.
VMs commonly,
Whatever
maybe,
supports SMB.
or whatever supports SMB3 and
Right.
whatever you need.
Yes.
Now, up until this point, it has had some performance
Yeah.
limitations.
Yeah.
Is
I'll say
is that too strong?
no.
don't know,
I
maybe.
no. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah,
I mean,
and-
we look. We got it. We're here to provide full transparency.
That's right.
I think
It
there were
was-
some performance challenges.
Challenges, yeah.
I would certainly say there was some size constraints that made it somewhat. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not a replacement for an on-prem NAS.
It gets a lot closer now.
Yes, it does.
So let's talk about the announcements.
Absolutely.
The title of the article that we're referencing is just announcing general availability. So this is generally
GA.
available.
So it's
Yeah.
not preview. It's not.
No.
Yep. It's GA.
And these are larger and more powerful Azure file shares. So in other words, we're increasing the file share per share limit,
Yes.
and we are also increasing the performance.
Mhm.
So like the
So we're
file,
going from what 5 gigs to
no,
100?
5 terabytes.
I'm sorry, 5 terabytes.
5 gigs.
No,
That really wouldn't be much.
5 terabyte. Thank you. You're right.
Yes.
5 terabytes to 100 terabytes
Yes.
for the actual capacity.
Yes.
We're going from 1,000 IOPS to 10,000 IOPS for input output.
Yep.
And from 60 to 300 for
I think that's actually pronounced.
the MIBs.
Oh no, it's a
It's
throughput.
It's throughput, but I don't
Yeah,
know the
there's-
MIBs.
there's- well,
there's
no,
a term for it.
There's 2 I's in there. That's a typo.
I think that's a typo.
I think that this MIB, that abbreviation, believe it or not, folks,
Men in
is
Black.
it could be that, it is that, but it's MIBI bytes.
MIBI bytes. We
So-
had this conversation.
Yes, we
way
have.
back.
We
That's
have.
right. MIBI bytes.
Mega and kilo
Yep.
and giga actually means 1,000.
MIBI.
That means 1,000, and we know that a megabyte, well, a MIBI byte is actually 1024 of kibibytes, which is 1024, right? Kibi and MIBI are based on power of 2. Mega, kilo, and giga are based on 10, which we know we don't use. We're using them wrong. It's okay, though. I just wanted to share that.
I was told.
I read
there's
about
no
this.
math.
I read about this the other day. I was like,
Dude,
what the
I am impressed. Look at you with the big
So
brain.
MIBI,
Nice
Kibi, Gibby, with the B in it, that means it's based on power of 2,
Right
which is
on.
what we always
Instead of
knew.
base 10.
Instead of base 10.
I gotcha.
So if you really want to say it's not a kilobyte would actually be,
A kibi byte.
well, a kilobyte is actually 1,000
Right.
bytes.
Right.
But what we always meant was 1024,
Right.
which is a kibibyte. How about that? You learn something new every day,
Now
and you
smarter.
didn't, and you probably didn't even need to know it.
No. Well, you know.
But anyway, whenever you see MIB, that means MIBI bytes, and in we're all supposed to use MIBI bytes. That's kind of the standard via computer science. So you'll see that in our documentation. You may wonder why it says MIB. That means MIBI bytes. Anyway,
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
So this is actually referencing up to 300 MIBI bytes per second.
There you go.
Okay.
So, but the important part here is 300, but previously it was 60.
60, yeah.
So we're seeing
Kinda-
a pretty significant increase in performance, throughput, and
Size.
So
Yeah.
now it's becoming
Very interesting. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of work. It's funny how 5 terabytes was like this crazy amount of storage not too long ago, but for cloud workloads, it's relatively small,
Oh.
especially for the things you would want to put on Azure Files, right?
Absolutely.
The things you would want to put on Azure Files are big.
Oh,
like,
totally.
You don't want to manage it, and so having lots of Azure File stores,
100%.
you don't want to have to mess with that.
Well, and
100 terabytes is a
I
lot.
think I have a 5 terabyte drive at home in my
I know, and
in my
so.
gaming rig.
Yeah, and so we needed to make it to where like all the way up to at least 100 terabyte workloads work in Azure Files, because that means a lot fewer shares if you do need more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great upgrade. You can upgrade existing general purpose storage accounts and existing file shares, so you can actually expand the size if you have them today.
Okay.
You can opt in for larger file shares at a storage account instead of a subscription level, so you don't have to say the whole subscription now supports this. You can do it individually at storage account levels. And I
Okay.
think that might be more of a cost control, perhaps, mechanism. I'm not
Yep.
entirely sure what the
Okay.
rationale would be there. But of course, we have expanded regional coverage. Now that's in GA, right? Because I
Yep.
believe prior to GA, it was not necessarily
Yep.
location, but it does support both locally redundant and zonal redundant storage, which is important.
Yes, and you'll notice here that these larger file share support are available for locally and zone, like you
Yeah,
said,
yep.
in 13 regions.
Yep.
And rolling out to the rest.
Yep.
So we're just not done yet rolling it all out.
Right.
It takes a while when you have 54 regions,
Yes.
much less the number of facilities we have in those regions. So it takes a little while.
Yeah.
But we're going to go ahead and announce it now while we're continuing to roll those out.
Mhm.
So there's a link in the article about what the region availability is now, and you can catch up on that as it comes to a region near you.
Yep. And there's been improvements in the scale of sync. So Azure File Sync,
Oh yeah.
there's been with this has come updates and enhancements to that as well to keep up with this new.
Yeah.
These new.
And it could even be that because of this is why Azure Data Sync is faster.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so Azure Data Sync, allows you to like basically synchronize Azure files to a Windows server and some other really cool stuff. So if you're kind of interested in synchronizing your files around,
Yeah.
take a look at that.
Yep.
Okay.
Very simple, very straightforward. Check a radio button. Boom, it's enabled, and you've got large file share.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool.
yes.
And on an existing account, you can go in
Oh.
and just basically toggle it.
I see where you are. Yeah, right. Yeah, and then it goes. So yes, this is important. Right on. If you want to upgrade, there's information in this article
Yep.
about how to create a new one with Azure Large File Shares.
Yep.
And then there's another little article that talks, not article, another little section that talks about how to upgrade your existing one.
Absolutely.
So what I'm assuming is happening is that we needed to upgrade the infrastructure to do this. And so the reason why you have to say Azure Files, large file shares, yes, is that moves you over to one of the new pieces of infrastructure. What infrastructure? I mean that with a small I.
Mhm.
It's like they're all built in stamps and all this sort of way that we put them together. You don't need to understand that. It's just that we had to design a new stamp,
Absolutely.
a new deployment unit so that it could support this.
Yep.
And so you have to basically elect to get put into one of those stamps.
Yep.
And the other one probably helps you get moved over. So
I'm sure.
um,
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah,
which
no,
is
I mean, it's about time, right? I mean, this is
It
stuff
is.
people have been asking for, more performant, more, obviously more space.
Yeah.
And without a doubt,
Yeah.
you know, and the transfer rate now, I think it's definitely becoming a viable solution.
I think it really is
Yeah.
too. Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool.
Okay. Oh, this one's related.
So this is directly related.
Yeah.
So leverage Azure Premium file shares for high availability of data, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot, when we talk about data, it's kind of an open-ended term, right? Because you can talk about files, you can talk about relational data, you can talk about, I mean, there's so many different types of data out there, right? So, you know, some parts of it is we provide an SLA of 99.95, right, for a machine with SQL Server. And for SQL Server high availability on Azure VM, you got to host two VMs, right? So you've got two virtual machine instances and in different availability zones, right? So today we're announcing a new option for SQL Server high availability with SQL Server failover cluster with Azure Premium file shares.
What?
So these are solid state drive backed, so consistent, low latency file
What?
shares that are supported for SQL Server failover cluster instance.
What? I didn't think this was ever going to be possible.
I didn't either.
Okay, so
I'm not gonna lie.
okay, so what? Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. When I started at Microsoft 9 years ago,
Yeah.
8 years ago, I was a SQL Server technical
Oh, I
specialist.
knew
So this is
that.
what I did,
I know.
and we always said, "Oh, you'll never be able to do SQL Server FCI in Azure," and here it is.
Yep.
Wow, that is cool.
Yep. And I remember, you know, I
This
remember people.
this title totally buries the lead too.
I know.
Because
I
it
know, they
should
didn't
say
do it any favors.
leverage Azure Premium files for SQL Server FCI.
I know, totally.
That's what it should have said.
Totally. No, I agree 100%. I mean, this is, I mean, basically zero downtime, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you're looking at, a scenario
Yeah.
like that.
Well, and all of you SQL DBAs that there are well aware, know exactly what we're talking about, how SQL FCI covers a different high availability need or strategy
Yep.
than always on availability groups.
Yep. Exactly.
It's still valid.
Absolutely.
It became a lot harder in the cloud because of the nature of the cloud.
Yep.
So people kind of went more to always on availability groups, but honestly, I think people just went without.
Yeah.
So
I think that's exactly
and
what
they
happened.
went to Azure SQL, which is
Yes.
always still another good option.
Absolutely.
But if you want to run a SQL Server FCI in Azure, you can do it on Azure Files.
Right. And I
How
like this,
about that?
that I like this part, zonal redundancy.
Yeah.
So in some regions where
Of your Azure
where
files.
zone availability or zone redundancy or zone
Yeah.
availability is in place, you can now use that, right? Because we just said you can use zone redundant storage or files, and this will support that. So that
and
gives
you-
you, well, the thing is, it goes from 99.95 to 99.99% availability.
And you could put your FCI also in different zones.
Right. Well, that's the point. So that
I mean,
takes you up
both
to
storage and
right.
you know what I mean, like you need to do both.
Yeah. So there's no so previously you could have done one but not both, so that would have put you in the lowest common denominator would have been 99.95, even though part of your solution was 99, and this brings it to both 99.
Yep, that
Which
is
is
cool, man.
awesome,
Yeah, so
right?
you can put one side of the FCI in this zone and one side of the FCI in that zone, and then your storage, I guess, is automatically zonal. I didn't see where you had to. No, you have to say it's ZRS.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct.
So you do have to say it's ZRS.
Yes.
Which means that the storage account itself is spread out across zones. So you need to do both.
Yep.
Okay, just thinking through this.
Yep.
And then you can have Azure FCI, which is really cool because you can have like a lot of, like, especially if you have on-prem SQL Server that has like 40 databases on it, or 40 small apps.
Yep.
And you just don't really want to set up availability groups. Like, I get it. Like, I get it. I've done.
Right?
I've tried to talk to people about it, and they go,
I know.
They go, really? You want me
We
to set up?
can't justify it.
We can't. We don't want to manage 40 availability groups. And sometimes these SQL servers have 100 databases or 200.
Right.
And so you don't want to have one availability group that has 200 things in it, nor do you want to have 200 availability groups with one
with
thing in
one
it.
in them.
Like, you don't really want to do that.
No.
And so FCI can really make a lot of sense.
Well, and some of the cool thing about this though is there is some burst input or output capacity, right? So premium file share provides basically automated bursts for IOPS to a limit based on a credit system. So if you keep those in
interesting.
reserve,
Sounds like a B series VM.
yeah, exactly, very similar to a B series VM where you've got sporadic burstability, you know, because yeah, so it just really
Neat.
cool.
Really
I know,
cool,
I
man.
absolutely agree. So
I
it's
never
another
thought
good option.
I never thought we'd see this.
I-
I had no idea we could maybe have done this on Azure Files. That's awesome.
I
Okay,
agree. I agree.
but I guess you always could do SQL Server on SMB3. Like, I didn't really ever think about that. Like, I know it had that capability, but anyway, the other thing I'll say about that article, whenever you get to the show notes or see it on, well, the show notes, is down at the bottom. There's a step-by-step. I just saw that a minute ago on the Azure.
The one for the SQL one or for the
SQL one?
Oh,
No, the SQL one. Just right down.
step-by-step guide for configuring SQL failover cluster instance with Azure Premium 5.
So you want to get started?
No excuses.
No excuses. It's right there, step by step. It actually shouldn't be that hard.
No, no, I can't imagine.
You need to have the servers connect to the Azure file store, and then you just create your database and make sure that the files get created on the file share. It shouldn't be that hard.
There you
So,
go.
okay, cool, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
I'm a fan.
more SQL.
Well, I know.
You did a nice job of putting these in order here.
Well,
It's a nice flow, Rick.
it wasn't
Good job.
intentional, but so okay.
Oh, come on, take credit.
Okay, I did it on purpose because I wanted to lead up to my soapbox.
Which is true, which is
Well,
coming.
It is.
Here
And
comes Rick's soapbox.
So I've been a little frustrated with a particular marketing
Oh,
individual
yes.
at
This
AWS
soapbox.
who starts throwing out a lot of FUD and talking about how, you know, even like Windows workloads are cheaper and and all this stuff on AWS than Azure. And I scratch my head and go, really? Really? Prove that to me. Because
Come
we've got
on.
reserve instance, we have AHub, we've got all these capabilities. No, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. And quite frankly, anybody with half a brain probably isn't buying it either. So I would almost, I would really like to see the justification, the proof. I don't want architecture. I don't want, you know, advertising speak. I want to see proof.
And well, guess what? GigaOM.
Yep.
Proof.
Exactly.
So,
And GigaOM is not, it's a third party.
yeah, right.
So basically what we're talking about is Azure SQL Database, continuous innovation and limitless scale at an unbeatable price.
Absolutely unbeatable. And so, just to review for people who don't know, there is a difference between AWS RDS and
Yep.
Azure SQL.
Database, yep.
RDS is basically a virtual machine with SQL Server installed on it, and AWS does help you manage SQL. I won't lie.
Yeah.
They do, but it's still just SQL Server, which
Yep.
is great. I mean, don't trust me. I love SQL Server.
Yep.
But it isn't really a managed service. Okay. There's still a copy of SQL Server that needs to be upgraded occasionally.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yeah,
So
yep,
it is
yep.
a copy of SQL. Azure SQL is different. It's a service that never needs to be upgraded specifically.
Correct.
It's just always the latest version. We're constantly applying patches, fixes, updates. So in
Well,
other words,
it needs to be updated, but we're doing it on the
yes,
user's
thank you.
behalf.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
So in other words, like if there is although SQL Server is the least, there are the fewest number of security logged items on SQL of any other database.
Any other database.
Including Oracle. I'll
Yes.
just plug that,
Yep.
being the former SQL person. But
Right.
if there were, we would do it for you on your behalf in Azure SQL. On Amazon, you would have to actually install a patch, reboot, take the outage. On Azure, you wouldn't have to do that.
And oh, by the way, on Azure, you wouldn't even notice we did it because we have 3 copies of your database.
Automatically.
And we basically take them down one at a time. So you would still be available. You would be up and running while we did the underlying updates. It would be completely.
So while these services are worth comparing, I think it's fine to compare them.
Sure.
You also have to understand
Apples
that
and oranges.
they're not exactly the same.
Right.
And so whenever you think of PaaS, I have a feeling we can all agree that when we think of PaaS and having Microsoft take on the responsibility of running the runtime, which is SQL,
Yep.
We're really taking that on.
Oh,
and on
yeah.
Amazon, you're not. But
No.
that's actually not what we're talking about. That's
No.
just a side benefit.
But the cool thing is, so we have all this extra stuff that we're doing. You would think it comes at a premium price. Exactly. So, okay, so I tried not to be a spoiler on this one, but Gigamon, an independent research firm, published a study where they tested throughput performance between Azure SQL Database and SQL Server on our AWS RDS. So Azure SQL Database and AWS RDS SQL Server, okay?
Yeah.
Azure SQL Database basically won. 86% less cost.
And so this is price per performance.
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure we understand this here. So in other words, if you got, 100, and that's the only way to do this really,
Exactly.
is to say if you wanted to get, I don't know, 1,000 IOPS or whatever it is, or TPS or whatever it is.
TPS in this case.
Okay, so if you got whatever it was that they were looking for to get the same number of TPS, what
Yep.
did you have to spend in both services to get that TPS? And as you can see on the screen, although if you're raking leaves or mowing the yard right now, you can't see, but we'll tell you what it is. It's about $290 on Azure SQL and $2,100 on Amazon RDS.
So over 3 years, so 3-year pricing at the same TPS, 291 will round up on Azure, 2120 on AWS.
Yeah.
So
a lot,
86% cheaper we are.
a lot more. And this image that you'll see here is from GigaOM.
Yep.
This is not our stuff.
And it's recent. This was just recently published, so they just came out with this. So again, yes, there are certain things that Amazon's going to be better at, but this is definitely not one of them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, and one of the ways that we do this is you can say, I want an Azure SQL database, and I want it to have the equivalent of 4 cores, okay?
Yep.
And when you do that, that's called the core model. And when you do that, you can actually bring some of your SQL Server licenses from on-prem and apply those, and you can use the SQL Server hybrid use benefit to help you move over there. But we really want to make it to where SQL Server runs on. I mean, SQL Server better run awesome on our platform.
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
we own the stack, so you would
Absolutely.
expect it to run better. And that's a good thing.
Well,
like-
we do things like adaptive tuning. We're
Yeah.
doing all kinds of things on your behalf. So basically, focus on your application, focus on your data, focus on everything except the runtime engine, the server, all that stuff.
The performance. That's what we're adding here. We're saying price per performance.
Yep.
Know that you're getting the best price per performance on Azure.
Yep.
Over Amazon.
And now with what is it? The hyperscale.
Yeah,
what are we calling it?
hyperscale is
A
cool.
SQL database hyperscale.
Hyperscale, yeah.
You're not constrained to the traditional. I remember when I started, I think there was a 2 gig, a 1 gig, a 2 gig, and a 5 gig SQL database. And
Gig.
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 Yes, I know exactly.
Not terabyte.
No,
Gig.
it was crazy.
Yes, this is true. This was way back. And we've learned. We've really
yeah.
committed to the what is real paths, which is where we take on complete responsibility for the middleware runtime, or whatever you want to call it, which in this case is SQL Server.
Yep.
Yep. And it's really starting to pay off where, if we're running the service on our own, then we have the telemetry and insights to help make sure the service runs as smoothly as possible.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so SQL Server we all already know SQL Server is a great platform for running your data.
Yep.
Run it on Azure. It's really the best place for you to do that.
Yeah, without a
most
doubt.
cost effective.
Without a doubt.
The one thing I will say about SQL Database Hyperscale is I thought this was really interesting. When I looked at that, it looked like basically we had taken what I recognized as the SQL Server high-level internal architecture and disassembled it into services that run on separate compute. So it looks really, really cool, and that's why it's limitless. When you get to limitless, you always have to understand that means scale out at some level.
Yep.
And so in some ways, we took the high-level SQL Server architecture and scaled it out so it looks and feels like one SQL Server, but it's cool. It's really cool.
It is. It really is cool.
Yeah,
it
it's
makes
cool.
me happy because it's that's and there's other stuff we talk about, right? We provide enterprise grade reliability with industry leading availability, up 99.995, not 99.9995. And it also provides the only 100% business continuity SLA in the industry for a relational database.
How about that?
That's crazy.
Love it.
All right. So,
All
not
right.
using it, use it.
Got to use it. Try it out.
That's right.
See how easy it is to just spin up a database, start using it. You don't have to install SQL. You don't have to do any of that stuff. If in your organization, let me just ask a question. If in your organization it takes 6 to 8 to 12 weeks to get a SQL Server database to go for your developers,
Should take 6 to 12 minutes.
it should take 6 to 12 minutes, and on Azure it does. So give it a try. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is a bit of a Java announcement.
Well, yeah. So,
I mean, we love Java.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and
Bring
Spring,
the Java.
The Spring framework, you've got the Spring is everywhere, right? Pivotal uses Spring Boot. You've got Spring Cloud. You've got Spring everything. And I I want to say at one point I heard it was in like 80% of the Java, applications that are deployed leverage Spring for, in one way, shape, or
Anytime I hear
form.
somebody saying, "Oh yeah, we're doing Java," and it's like, "Oh, are you using Spring?"
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
the answer is yes. So it's very pervasive in the Java ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. Spring Boot and Spring Cloud have really helped address challenges for building Java microservices with a platform, and then having prescriptive patterns, right, that they can use to develop and operate these microservices. So, the interesting thing about that though is setting up this environment requires work, and maintaining it requires work, right? You've got infrastructure, setting up for scale, there's a lot of different components and there's a lot of different pieces. The logging infrastructure, all these things have to be kind of wired up in order for this to happen. So to make it simpler, basically we partnered. Is it partnering with Pivotal? I mean, we worked.
I think that's what they said here.
I don't know how else to call it, but
partner.
We worked
Like
about as close
they didn't
with
use
a
the word
partner.
partner, but what I can say is we have worked and engineered together
There you go.
a platform so that you can run your Spring Cloud workloads easily.
So that's even. I mean, to me, that sounds even bigger than a partner. We co-engineered a solution.
Sounds like a partnership.
Right. Absolutely.
They don't use that word, but
No,
the author doesn't use that word.
No.
But although it's a partnership.
Yeah,
for sure.
and so it was jointly built. It's operated and supported by both Pivotal and Microsoft. So it's a first class citizen on the platform. You're getting first class support, right? You've got Pivotal and Microsoft together. You're not going to have to worry about going here and going here and going here and going here. You've got Pivotal and Microsoft. Microsoft typically does the first best effort, first
level call, and you'll work with us. And then typically in these situations, if we need additional support, you will not have to go to Pivotal in this case. We will go to Pivotal. We'll pull them in and make sure that we get the support we need.
Exactly.
The other thing I noticed here is that there is an Azure Spring Cloud Maven plugin for VS Code, and so we want you to have great tooling, great experiences. VS Code is extremely popular as a code editor.
Absolutely.
It's super lightweight, super easy to use. You can double click on it to open up a JSON file just as easily as a Visual Studio project. Yeah. So it's a great way to manage your application code.
Absolutely agree.
And I think we find that people are doing that in all different platforms. I heard the other day somebody said, "Well, what should I use for Python?" And somebody else said, Visual Studio Code. It's like it's by far the best place to go to do Python. So it's a multi-language. I've even used it for a little bit of Go. So it's a great place to go to do this, and we being Microsoft and Pivotal, have provided this Spring Cloud Maven plugin.
Absolutely, yeah. So that kind of takes us to the end of our announcements. And,
yes,
and
it does.
I actually want to share something with. I'm going to refresh my connection. Nope, it's all good. So I had a query from somebody. I won't name any names, but I had somebody reach out to me. It was a person who
a query. That sounds like you've been in England.
Exactly.
You mean a question?
I had a question.
A query.
So somebody reached out. They're doing some incident response stuff. They're using Graylog today. They're doing some other leveraging some other tools, and basically they were starting to see things tip over a little bit, and they were having some struggles, and was asking about Azure Sentinel. So Azure Sentinel is basically a security appliance. It's a SIEM, right? Where you can basically ingest all this information, event logs, all kinds of different CEF compliant formats, a whole bunch of different data formats. And then you can start to do like hunting. You could do threat analysis. You can perform AI. So it's what you would expect, right?
It's a SIEM.
Yeah, it's a SIEM.
This is clearly an entrance of Microsoft into the security vendor, if you will, space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the question was though, can I, if I'm in the business of incident response and a customer comes to me, say for example, the jump drive with a bunch of event logs from a machine that was compromised, could I get those into Azure Sentinel? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I thought, well, it seems like it'd be really easy. Well, at first, it was going to be a struggle. I almost had to go back to him and say, you know what, I don't think this is going to work. I've talked to a few people internally, and the prevailing thought is that you kind of have to do it real time. But I thought, no, we're going to try this. So I went to a couple different paths.
Oh, I see what they're saying. Yeah.
So I tried a couple different paths and was looking at a few different ways of doing it when I collaborated with Scott Rutz, one of our fellow CSAs here in the Twin Cities area.
Scott's been on the show before.
Yep. And Scott said, hey, did you think about using basically the data connector? And I went, Yeah, I looked
Wow.
at it, but I didn't think about it in the way you're proposing, because basically what he proposed was take the data, dump it onto a VM, either on-prem or in Azure, use the data connector to map to the data structure,
Mm.
download the computer agent onto that VM, and that will now take those custom logs and
As
bring
if it
them
was
up,
just a log.
suck them up into log analytics, and then they can then be ingested into Sentinel.
Yeah.
And
Because one thing I want to explain is that Sentinel, if you want to think of Sentinel, Sentinel is like it's like a compute service on
Mhm.
top of log analytics.
Exactly. That's
So
a
log
great way to
analytics
talk
is
about it.
still the database. Like we've always pulled in unstructured, if you will.
Yep.
Like they're not unstructured, but
Oh.
unstructured logs into log analytics.
Yep.
It's a place to do a queries, and the queries are amazing. It's the Custo query language. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
But then if you think about, okay, now that we have this unstructured log format, then the SIM part is not really the database part. That's actually not what makes a SIM a SIM.
Right.
It's the compute part, the
Exactly.
analysis, the
Yep.
hunting, all of those
Yes,
capabilities.
yes, absolutely.
And so we added Sentinel on top of what we already had, which was log
Yeah.
analytics.
So what I did to make this happen is I went into I went into the advanced settings. So I was in the we'll call this the analytics workspace.
So this is your log analytics
Correct,
account
yep.
here,
And
and
I
you went to advanced settings.
Clicked on advanced settings.
Yep.
And then you get this list. You have your connected sources that are built in, right?
Yep.
You've got groups of managed computers that you've got through AD, SCOM or whatever.
Yep.
And then of course you have this data piece. And so that was where I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I started to see some of these things, and I got to the custom logs piece, and I thought, okay, let's look at that. So I went ahead and clicked on custom logs, and ultimately what I did, whoops, I didn't put a, I did not, sorry, back here for a second. I did not put a description in here, but what I did was I had taken security, Windows security event log,
Yep.
and which is a .evtx file, and I pointed to it. And what it does then is it uses the first couple rows to define the schema and do a couple different other things, right?
But you referenced the log file on your local machine.
Correct.
You basically just said, okay, here's a file. I'm going to look locally on my C drive.
Yep.
Here's the file.
Yep.
And then it sucked it up and looked a little bit at it to try and figure out what it looks like.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
So once I did that, basically what happens is it generates.
There he is right there.
There's the man that helped us figure this out.
There's Scott Rutz walking by right
The
there.
man, the myth, the legend. So what I ended up doing then is throughout this process, I created this custom piece, right? And then what you do when you create this, so I'll just go through and pretend like I'm going to add one. Right?
Okay.
So you create a sample log. I may not have an event. Oh, shoot, I don't. But what it does is you add paths. And so what it does is it essentially on the fly, it's creating a config for basically a file watching agent that's going to look at these file paths for new files land so it can bring them up in log analytics.
Right. So just think about some custom application that outputs log onto the C:dev logs directory.
Yep.
And you just want to pull, if you're an operations person, you're just saying, I just want to pull the logs out of this directory. But of course, that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah. No,
we're just going to do it. We're just going to do it once.
Yep. You got it. And so once I was at this point, then it gives you the ability to grab there's essentially, well, you can see there's a query, right? And so you can start querying it using log analytics, but you got to get the data in here first, right? So what you have to do is there's an agent that once you get through here, I think I had, did I have, yeah, well, it looks just like this, okay? So once you go through and create your custom data log, you get this window, but it's not this. Basically, there's a download, and that agent then, based on the configuration you specified when you walk through the wizard, has all that config set up. So you download the agent,
which is like the active part. So once again, we're kind of going back to how this thing is supposed to work. You're kind of hacking a little bit here, a little bit.
Yep.
But if you're an operations person and you're on a VM and you're like, okay, this VM generates logs, this application here generates logs into this directory, then you need to download an agent so that this agent can actually scoop up those logs and send them to log analytics. And so that's essentially what you're saying is here, is that you downloaded the agent onto your local machine and told it, do you see this C:\logs file?
Yep.
It looks in this one directory for this one file.
Yep.
Finds it.
Well, not necessarily just one file. What I did was *.evtx. So it just look at this directory. Whenever anything lands in there, I want you to suck it in. So what you do is you install the agent, then you have to come back and get the workspace ID and the secret or the key or whatever. You get it up and running. And so the agent is actually, I tested this on my local laptop. So the agent is actually running on my local machine.
You're not going to use process monitor?
No.
Just kidding. It was a joke.
So it's running. I can't remember. I know where it's located physically, but so the agent is actually running. It's not.
Yep.
It's an Azure.
Sure,
It
sure, sure, sure.
sends up the information.
But either way, you can see the agent running,
Oh yeah.
watching for this log file
Oh
to
yeah.
be created.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. So C drive program files.
Yep.
And you'll see when it gets downloaded.
Okay.
So then eventually what it does is that data makes its way into log analytics, right? So if I go into my log analytics and I look at my logs, I see that basically I can start to see the security events surface, but they make it easy for you. So you can see in custom logs, which is what I just created. Here's my log that I created, or my format. And so right now it does limit 50. It's a little bit hard. Sorry.
There you go, and you can grab it right there.
So if I scroll.
Here, grab this one. Oops, sorry.
Oh, there we go. So there is. It's hard. This screen resolution, unfortunately, it's really hard to see. But when I run this query down here,
can you zoom out a little bit and Internet Explorer?
Thank you. Always a rock
That's
star.
why I'm here.
Always a rock star.
So that's why I'm here.
So now you see the.
So it's going to be a little small on the screen,
sorry for those of you at home who are watching. But these are the security events you're starting to see. Now they look a little bit cryptic because you see the raw data, but behind the scenes, it's actually taken this and converted it into a structure that's compliant for log analytics, and it's very JSON looking, but it maintained the integrity of the data, the timestamps, the machine name, all the information you would expect to see.
Yeah, and it just did. Yeah, we're getting.
There you go.
We're getting applause.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, wait, there's more. And basically what happened, just to back up for a second, that schema that we saw is log analytics auto-detecting a schema and pulling it in for you.
Yep. So the last step then was I went ahead and provisioned Azure Sentinel. And once Azure Sentinel, you point it to an existing or new log analytics workspace. In this case, I pointed it to existing.
Right, because remember, Sentinel kind of sits on log analytics as the database.
And you can see, so this doesn't look very representational of what event logs would look like because they were bulk loaded. Now, even though it looks like they all have the same timestamps, there's not enough granularity in this scale to show that this is actually a window really big of events. It just so happens that that was what I exported.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a big chunk, but you can see, usage, you can see security event, you can see all the heartbeats from the agents.
So it actually already started detecting security events.
Absolutely. So if I go back in there.
I need to zoom out of this one too.
Yeah, good call. There you go.
There we go.
Yep. So you can see, I've got the account. I've got, see, these are all security events, right? And if you go back here, I've got security events. I've got data source anomalies. For example, in the security event, there's, if I click on this, I can see that there were cases, like I must have, actually Docker Desktop created a security event because I tried to log in with the wrong account, and so it shows up in here. So I literally saw it surface in here. So from a Sentinel perspective, why do you care about this? Because eventually you need to do some hunting, okay? So what I did was then I let my data set get loaded, because it does take a little bit for your data to make it into Sentinel. And once it got in there, I gotta run. A lot of these will show up, 0, because I'm not doing AWS. I'm not doing some of this stuff. I should see, okay, there's so here's, least common process, including folder depth. There's,
so it's actually identifying things that you can
potentially look.
Is it identifying things you need to go do or problems that happen?
No, this is purely for hunting. So they're not necessarily problems. They're things that may look like they require maybe a little bit. And it
things you ought to look into.
If it does, in fact, it will detect actual incidents. So these are things that look interesting, but it will actually, if there was a real incident, it would absolutely attach to it. So you can see then if I click on this one, it should take me into query, and you can see it's got the query here.
Oh, sure, it's a log analytics query.
Yep, exactly. So I get 11 results, and if I click on this, it takes me, so it creates an interesting opportunity for you to go and take a look so you can see the drive depth. It's just, So
that is cool, man.
Basically.
And what's cool about that is that you can also sort of demonstrate the value of Sentinel with a static data set.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm also thinking about it. personally, we tend to, go out and show customers
Mhm.
how this stuff works.
Mhm.
And all you would need is a file full of what is actually a VM being compromised.
Exactly.
And you can actually take a look at it and understand it. And guess what? You didn't have to buy
I know.
licenses.
I know. Exactly.
You can try it out and see what you think.
Yep. Yep.
Without paying an arm and a leg for it.
No, that's the beautiful thing of this. So my next step is to actually try and find a series of events that
Yeah.
they believe were associated with an
Yeah,
incident and see what Sentinel will do. Will it identify the incident, which I'm assuming it will. But so stay tuned.
Yeah,
We'll
more to
have some,
come.
hopefully we'll have some updates and I'll have some additional feedback for you in regards to how it handled that.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
So
it was fun.
for those of you that were not watching, that were listening, sorry about that.
Apologize, but
Go to YouTube
mhm.
and catch the show, and
Yep.
you can fast forward directly to the
Yep.
to the demo.
Absolutely.
Rick did a really nice job of showing us some cool Sentinel
Well,
stuff.
and I'll tell you what, the built-in connectors, I was blown away when I started looking at, Sentinel and all the connectors it has for ATP and for O365. And I mean, just built in, boom, it's awesome. That's
Yeah.
all I can say is it's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, so that's the show.
That is the show. I guess we kind of kept them a little bit later than we normally would, but we
Did
had
we?
some good stuff to talk about.
That's all right.
Yeah, all right.
So where can people catch you if they need to find you after the show, Rick?
Per my usual, you can find me racing down the highway in my new car. If I'm not there, if
that's
you can't
right.
catch me, kidding, of course. You can catch me at rick@microsoft.com, or of course, you can always reach out to us at our Twitter handle at Azure Flash News.
And you can catch me on Twitter at mgarner or email me at Microsoft, mgarner@microsoft.com. Happy to take emails or
Absolutely.
Twitter tweets.
Please.
And remember that the show is published on all of the different podcast platforms, Stitcher, iTunes, Google.
Yep.
And then also you can catch us on YouTube if you want to catch the video.
Yep.
And the show notes are over on GitHub if you want to catch that.
Absolutely.
So,
You can hit our URL, www.azureflashnews.com, and it takes you right to our GitHub repo.
That's right.
Yeah.
And all the show notes are there.
So thank you to the MTC, Emily McMiller, and folks for creating the facility and for helping us behind the scenes to get this produced.
Yep, that's right. We
And
really
thank
appreciate it.
you to the listener, the viewer, or the subscriber. We couldn't do this without you. So as usual, we look forward to talking to you sometime. I shouldn't say same time,
Yeah.
same place next week, but sometime in the near future.
Yeah, today is Wednesday, right?
Today is
No,
Friday,
today's
my friend.
Oh, it is Friday. Azure
Yeah.
Flash News. Yeah,
I
it
know,
is Friday.
right?
I'm
Ooh,
like,
he needs a couple days off.
I know.
Awesome.
But we'll try and do it sometime late next week. We'll see
Yeah,
what we can do.
absolutely, absolutely. And then of course we'll have all the Ignite announcements.
Yes.
So
Good Ignite stuff coming.
that's
Okay.
right. So until then, keep your fingers on the keyboards and your head in the clouds.
See you, everybody.